Admiral Kethmore stood in the command center of his massive warship, looking at the star map floating in front of him. His ship, the Voidrender, was one of the biggest in the Zephyrian Empire's fleet. For over 300 years, his people had been taking over planets across the galaxy. They were very good at it, but today, something strange caught his attention. "Commander Vextal," he called to his second-in-command. "Come look at this." Vextal walked over, his boots making heavy sounds on the metal floor. He was a good soldier, loyal and smart. When he saw what the Admiral was pointing at, his eyes went wide. "Sir, there's a gap in our territory," Vextal said slowly. "Right here, in this area of space." The Admiral nodded. In all their years of conquest, they had never seen anything like this. Every star system in this part of the galaxy belonged to someone. The Zephyrians had taken most of them. Other alien races controlled the rest. But here, in the middle of everything, was one yellow star that nobody seemed to want. "What do we know about this system?" Kethmore asked. Vextal checked his computer. "It's called Sol by the local species. The third planet from the star is inhabited by creatures called humans. Our scouts say they are not very advanced. No big space fleets, no powerful weapons that we can see." The Admiral scratched his chin, thinking, this made no sense. If the humans were weak and their planet had no defenses, why hadn't anyone taken it over? The Zephyrian Empire was always looking for new worlds to control. So were their enemies, the Graxan merchants and the Vorthan warriors. Sir Vextal continued, "There's something else. Look at these trade routes." The star map showed lines of light connecting different star systems. These were the paths that spaceships used to travel between planets for trade and war. But around the Sol system, all the lines curved away. It was like ships were going out of their way to avoid that one yellow star. "Even the pirates avoid this area," Vextal said. "The Graxian salvage crews won't go near it. The Vorthan raiding fleets take longer routes just to stay away." This was very strange. Pirates and raiders were not afraid of weak planets. They loved attacking places that couldn't fight back. Yet here was a planet full of primitive humans that even the most fearless warriors in the galaxy seemed to fear. Kethmore had been a military commander for a long time. He had learned to trust his instincts. When every other species in the galaxy avoided something, there was usually a good reason. But he had also learned that sometimes the best treasures were hidden in the places everyone else was afraid to look. "Maybe they're protecting something valuable," he said to himself. "Some kind of rare metal or energy source." "Should we send scouts, sir?" Vextal asked. The Admiral thought about this. Sending scouts was the safe thing to do. But it was also slow. If there really was something valuable on that human planet, he wanted to claim it before anyone else figured out what it was. Besides, what could a bunch of primitive humans do against the might of the Zephyrian Empire? "No," Kethmore decided. "We go ourselves. Prepare the third battle fleet." Vextal looked surprised. "The entire third battle fleet, sir, for one primitive planet. If we're going to do this, we do it right," the Admiral said. "One want 200 ships. I want our best weapons and our strongest shields. Whatever is making everyone avoid this place, we'll be ready for it." The news spread quickly through the ship. Crew members talked in excited whispers about their new mission. Some wondered what kind of treasure they might find. Others joked about how easy it would be to defeat a bunch of primitive humans. But in the quiet of his private quarters, Admiral Kethmore studied everything they knew about Earth and its people. There wasn't much information. The humans had only recently developed space travel. They had sent a few small ships to their own moon and to nearby planets, but nothing more. Their weapons seemed to be simple chemical explosives and metal projectiles. Yet, something bothered him. Why would every other species in the galaxy avoid such a seemingly weak target? The Vorthans were famous for attacking anyone they thought they could beat. The Graxians would steal anything that wasn't nailed down. Even the peaceful Zentarians would at least try to make contact with new species for trade. But around Earth, there was only silence, only empty space where busy trade routes should be. As his fleet prepared to leave for the Sol system, Kethmore made a decision that would change everything. Instead of approaching Earth with just enough force to demand surrender, he would bring overwhelming power. If the humans were hiding something dangerous, he would crush them before they could use it. If they were protecting something valuable, he would take it. He had no way of knowing that he was about to learn the most important lesson in galactic history. Some prey, he would discover, only looks weak because it chooses to be. The journey to Earth would take several days, as the great Zephyrian fleet moved through space toward the small blue planet. Admiral Kethmore felt confident in his decision. Soon, he thought, the mystery of the avoided system would be solved, and the Zephyrian Empire would have a new world to rule. He could not have been more wrong. 3 days into their journey toward Earth, Admiral Kethmore was reviewing battle plans when his communications officer suddenly looked up from his station. "Sir, we have an incoming transmission," the officer said, his voice confused. "It's a Graxian merchant ship. They're trying to contact us directly." Kethmore frowned. Graxian merchants were known throughout the galaxy for being greedy and selfish. They never contacted military fleets unless they were trying to sell something or avoid being destroyed. What could they possibly want? "Put them through," he ordered. The main screen flickered to life, showing the worried face of a Graxian captain. His skin was the typical green color of his species, but it looked pale with fear. "Zephyrian fleet, this is Captain Nixgall of the merchant vessel Prophet's Edge," the alien said quickly. "I am breaking from my trade route to warn you. You must turn around immediately. That system you are heading toward, you do not understand what you are flying into." Commander Vexdal looked at Admiral Kethmore with raised eyebrows. In all their years of conquest, no one had ever tried to warn them away from a target. "This is Admiral Kethmore of the Zephyrian 3rd Battle Fleet," he replied. "We have business in the Sol system, merchant. Your concern is noted, but not needed. Business." The Graxian's voice went up in pitch. "Listen to me very carefully. Those humans are not like other species. We Graxians have traded with thousands of different aliens across the galaxy. We know how most species fight. They fight for territory, for resources, for power. But humans, ... humans fight differently." The merchant paused, as if trying to find the right words. "They do not just fight to win," he continued. "They fight to make sure that no one will ever want to fight them again. Do you understand the difference?" Before Admiral Kethmore could respond, another transmission came through on a different channel. This time, the communications officer looked truly shocked. "Sir, this is impossible," he said. "We're receiving a priority military transmission from a Vorthan war chief." Everyone on the bridge went quiet. The Vorthans were the most violent warrior race in the known galaxy. They attacked first and asked questions later. They had never, in recorded history, warned anyone about anything. "Put it through," Kethmore said slowly. The screen split to show both the Graxian merchant and a massive Vorthan warrior. The Vorthan's face was covered in battle scars, and his tusks were decorated with the traditional markings of a war chief. But his eyes showed something that no one had ever seen in a Vorthan before: fear. "I am War Chief Dokthal of the Vorthan Berserker clans," the warrior said, his voice much quieter than the usual Vorthan roar. "Zephyrian Admiral, I am abandoning my current raid to speak with you. Turn your fleet around. Do not go to the human system." Admiral Kethmore felt a chill run down his spine. A Vorthan war chief abandoning a raid was like a star stopping its burning. It simply did not happen. "Explain yourself, War Chief," he said. Deocathal closed his eyes for a moment, as if remembering something painful. 30 cycles ago, my clan decided to attack a small human mining station. Just one station, maybe 50 humans working there. We thought it would be easy. Humans looked weak. Their ships were small. Their weapons seemed simple. The Vorthan warrior opened his eyes, and the fear in them was clear. We were wrong, he continued. At first, the battle went as expected. We attacked, they defended. But then, something changed. The humans stopped just defending. They started watching us, learning from us. Every move we made, every tactic we used, they remembered. Captain Nixgol, the Graxan merchant, nodded his head. This is what I tried to tell you. Humans do not fight like other species. Within hours, Dokthol continued, they were predicting our attacks before we made them. They knew where we would strike next. They knew how we would try to retreat. It was like they could read our minds. By the end of the battle, they were not just beating us. They were playing with us, making examples of us. Commander Vexdal leaned forward. How many Vorthans did you lose? 300 of my best warriors, Dokthol said quietly. 300 warriors lost to 50 humans. The bridge of the Void Render was completely silent. Everyone knew that Vorthans were nearly impossible to kill in battle. They were big, strong, and trained from birth to fight. The idea that 50 humans had killed 300 Vorthans seemed impossible. But that is not the worst part, the Vorthan war chief continued. The survivors, they spoke of something the humans called the Geneva Conventions. What are these conventions? Admiral Kethmore asked. Both aliens looked at each other before the Graxian answered. From what we have learned, these are rules that humans made for themselves about war. But they are not rules about what humans cannot do. They are rules about what humans promise to hold themselves back from doing. Dokthol nodded. The humans have weapons and tactics that they refuse to use because they consider them too terrible. Can you imagine? A species that has to make rules to stop themselves from being too deadly in war. More transmissions began coming in from different ships across the galaxy. Word was spreading that a major fleet was heading toward Earth, and everyone wanted to warn them. Peaceful traders, aggressive pirates, neutral explorers. All of them had the same message. Stay away from the humans. Admiral Kethmore looked at his star charts again. The Sol system seemed different now. Not like a treasure waiting to be claimed, but like a trap that the entire galaxy was trying to help him avoid. But he had come too far to turn back now. Admiral Kethmore had done this same thing hundreds of times before. Arrive at a planet with a big fleet, demand that the people surrender, and then add their world to the Zephyrian Empire. It always worked. Every species they had ever met, either gave up right away or fought for a little while before losing. As his fleet entered the solar system, Earth looked small and blue ahead of them. It seemed peaceful and quiet. There were no big space stations or massive defense fleets waiting for them, just a few small ships moving around the planet. Open a communication channel to the planet, Admiral Kethmore ordered. The communications officer pressed some buttons on his control panel. Channel open, sir. Kethmore stood up straight and used his most commanding voice. Attention, people of the third planet. I am Admiral Kethmore of the Zephyrian Empire. Your solar system now belongs to us. You will surrender immediately. If you cooperate with us, we will make your joining our empire quick and easy. If you fight us, we will destroy you completely. He sat back down, expecting to hear crying, begging, or angry shouting. That was what usually happened. Sometimes the aliens would try to offer him money or resources to leave them alone. Sometimes they would threaten him with weapons they did not really have. But the response that came back was different from anything he had ever heard before. Negative, Zephyrian fleet, came a calm, clear voice, speaking perfect galactic standard language. This is United Earth Defense Command. We reject your demand. Prepare for consequences. Admiral Kethmore blinked in surprise. The human had said no, like he was turning down an invitation to dinner. There was no fear in the voice, no anger, no desperation, just a simple, polite refusal. Sir, Commander Vextal said from his position at the tactical station. I am detecting movement from the planet. Ships are launching. Kethmore looked at the main screen. Ships were indeed rising from Earth's surface, but they did not look like the desperate, thrown-together defense fleets he was used to seeing. These ships moved in perfect formation, taking positions around the planet in patterns that looked almost ... planned. How many ships? He asked. 47 vessels, sir, Vextal replied. They are much smaller than our ships, but their movements are very organized. The admiral almost laughed. 47 small ships against his fleet of 200 massive warships. This would be over in minutes. Begin the attack, he ordered. The first wave of Zephyrian fighters swept toward the human ships, firing their plasma cannons. But something strange happened. The human ships did not panic or scatter like most defenders did. Instead, they moved in careful patterns, avoiding the plasma blasts while staying in formation. Sir, the tactical officer reported, the humans are not returning fire. They appear to be watching us. This was odd, but not unheard of. Some species tried to study their attackers before fighting back. It never worked, but they tried. The second wave of fighters attacked, using different weapons and tactics. This time, a few human ships fired back, but their shots seemed more like tests than real attacks. They were trying different things, seeing what worked. But by the third wave, something had changed completely. Sir Vextal shouted, his voice full of confusion. The humans are predicting our attack patterns. They are moving out of the way, before we even fire. Admiral Kethmore watched in amazement as human ships danced around his fighters' attacks. It was like the humans knew exactly where every shot would go before the Zephyrian pilots even pulled their triggers. Deploy the quantum phase shields, he ordered. These shields were the Empire's greatest military advantage. They made ships nearly impossible to hit by shifting them slightly out of normal space. No enemy had ever found a way to get through them. The shields activated around his ships, and for a moment, Kethmore felt confident again. Let the humans predict his movements all they wanted. They could not hit what they could not touch. But then the impossible happened. The human ships fired. New weapons that seemed to ignore the quantum shields completely. Zephyrian fighters began exploding, as if their shields were not even there. How is this possible? Kethmore demanded. His answer came from the communications system. His officers had learned to listen in on enemy radio chatter during battles, and the human transmissions were being translated automatically. Pattern analysis complete, came a calm human voice. Enemy shield technology identified. Recommend switching to quantum-piercing rounds. Authorization? Captain Park Jin-ho, Earth Defense Command. The Admiral felt his blood turn cold. The humans had analyzed his shields and developed a counter-weapon in the middle of battle. In minutes, not hours or days. Minutes. More human voices came through the radio. Formation 7 is working well. Enemy fighters are falling for the bait-hand switch tactic. Confirmed. They are using the same attack patterns as the Vorthan clans. Recommend Defense Protocol 12. Sir, Vextal said, his voice shaking. They have defense protocols. Numbered defense protocols. How many protocols does a species need? As the battle continued, Admiral Kethmore began to understand that he was not fighting a desperate defense. He was fighting something much more dangerous. These humans were not just defending their planet. They were studying his entire fleet, learning everything about Zephyrian military tactics, and adapting faster than should have been possible. When his ships tried to outflank the humans by jumping through hyperspace, they found human ships waiting for them at the exit points. When they used advanced targeting computers, the humans seemed to know exactly how those computers worked, and fed them false information. It was like fighting an enemy that had been preparing for this exact battle for years. But the most terrifying part was still to come. As the battle went on, Admiral Kethmore began to notice something that made his blood run cold. His communications officers were picking up more and more human radio chatter, and what they were hearing did not make sense. "Sir," his communications officer said, looking confused at his screen. "I keep hearing the humans talk about something called peacekeeping restrictions. They seem to be ... holding back." "What do you mean, holding back?" Kethmore asked. Before the officer could answer, a new human transmission came through clearly. "Commander Lee Soyoung, to all units. Remember, we are still operating under peacekeeping protocols. No targeting of disabled enemy ships, no unrestricted warfare doctrines, and absolutely no total war authorization." Admiral Kethmore felt like someone had punched him in the stomach. Peacekeeping protocols. The humans were fighting his entire battle fleet under peacekeeping rules. "Commander Vextal," he said slowly, "get our intelligence team to hack into their communication networks. I need to know what we are really fighting." It took 20 minutes for the intelligence team to break through the human computer systems. What they found changed everything. "Sir," the intelligence officer reported, his voice barely above a whisper, "the forces we are fighting, they are not the human military." "What do you mean?" Kethmore demanded. "According to their records, these ships belong to something called United Nations Peacekeeping Forces. They are... how do I explain this? They are the humans who try to stop fights between other humans. They are not even soldiers, really. They are more like police." The bridge went completely silent. "They were losing a battle against human police, sir." "There is more," the intelligence officer continued. "I have been reading through their historical records. These humans, they have been fighting wars against each other for their entire history as a species. Thousands of years of constant warfare. But not against aliens, against other humans." Commander Vextal looked up from his tactical station. "Fighting against their own species. Why would they do that?" "I do not think they had a choice, sir," the intelligence officer said. "Their planet is divided into something called nations. Each nation has its own military, and for thousands of years, these nations have been fighting each other, developing new weapons, new strategies, new ways to win battles." Admiral Kethmore began to understand the horrible truth. "You mean they have been practicing warfare against opponents as smart as themselves?" "Yes, sir. And every nation learned from every other nation. When one nation invented a new weapon, the others had to invent defenses against it. When one developed a new strategy, the others had to develop counters to that strategy. They have been in a constant arms race with themselves for thousands of years. New human reinforcements were arriving at the battle, but they were not desperate or panicked. Each ship that joined the fight brought new tactics that seemed to come from an endless well of experience." "Sir," Vextal reported, "our tactical computers are trying to predict their next moves, but they keep changing their fighting style. It is like they have 1,000 different ways to fight, and they switch between them at will." Another human transmission crackled through their communications. "This is Admiral Kim Min-soo, Earth Defense Command. Zephyrian Fleet, you have 30 minutes to withdraw your forces and leave our solar system. After that time, we will be forced to remove safety protocols and engage you under unrestricted warfare guidelines." "Safety protocols," Kethmore whispered. His intelligence officer looked terrified as he read from his screen. "Sir, I am finding references to something in their historical records. Something they call total war doctrine. It appears to be a way of fighting that they used against each other in their past, but they... They made themselves stop using it because it was too destructive." "Too destructive for who?" "For everyone, sir. They created weapons and strategies so effective at destroying enemies that they had to make rules to stop themselves from using them. These Geneva Conventions that everyone warned us about, they are not rules about what humans cannot do. They are promises that humans made to hold back their worst capabilities." More alarms began sounding on the bridge. The tactical officer looked up with panic in his eyes. "Sir, I am detecting massive power signatures from their planet. Energy, Readings unlike anything we have ever seen. It is like they are powering up weapons that were not being used before. A new voice came over their communications.com and professional. This is General Choi Hyjin, Earth Defense Command, Zephyrian Admiral. This is your final warning. We have been fighting under peacekeeping restrictions because we hoped to resolve this without unnecessary loss of life. You have forced our hand. The Admiral looked at his tactical display. His mighty third battle fleet, the pride of the Zephyrian Empire, was already badly damaged. And according to what he was learning, the humans had not even been trying their best. Sir, his communications officer said quietly, I am picking up transmissions from their planet. They are asking permission to use something called unrestricted protocols. The responses are coming back as authorized. Admiral Kethmore realized with growing horror that everything they had faced so far had been the humans being polite. Now they were about to see what humans could do when they stopped being polite. He was about to learn why the entire galaxy feared a species that looked so peaceful from the outside. The real battle was about to begin. Admiral Kethmore would remember the next hour for the rest of his life as the longest and most terrifying 60 minutes he had ever experienced. When the humans finally removed their safety rules, everything changed in ways he could never have imagined. The first sign that something was different came when the human ships suddenly moved into new formations. They had been fighting carefully and defensively before, but now they moved with a deadly purpose that made Kethmore's skin crawl. Sir, Commander Vexdal called out, his voice shaking. The human ships are changing their attack patterns completely. These are not the same tactics they were using before. The second wave of human attacks hit the Zephyrian fleet like a hammer, but this was not just random destruction. Every shot the humans fired was carefully planned. Every move they made had a purpose. They were not trying to simply destroy the Zephyrian ships. They were taking them apart, piece by piece. They are targeting our engines first, the tactical officer reported, then our weapons systems, then our communications. They are disabling us in a specific order. Admiral Kethmore watched in horror as his mighty warships were destroyed. But the most frightening part was not the destruction itself. It was how easy the humans made it look. Ships that had taken years to build and had won dozens of battles were being defeated in minutes. Sir, Vexdal shouted over the alarms that were now blaring throughout the bridge. They are not just attacking us randomly. They are demonstrating something. Look at the pattern. The Admiral looked at his tactical screen and saw what his commander meant. The humans were destroying his ships in a way that would be visible to anyone watching. They were making sure that every other species in the galaxy could see exactly what happened when someone forced humans to stop being peaceful. A calm voice came over their communication system. Zephyrian Admiral, this is Captain Choi Hyjin of the Earth Defense Command. Your fleet is defeated. We want you to understand something important. We could have done this in the first 10 minutes of your attack. Kethmore felt his heart stop. The first 10 minutes? The battle had been going on 4 hours. Every strategy you have used today, we learned thousands of years ago fighting against each other, Captain Choi continued. Every weapon you have fired at us, we have already developed defenses against. Every tactic you know, we invented while fighting wars against opponents exactly as smart and creative as ourselves. The human captain's voice remained calm and professional, but her words hit harder than any weapon. We have spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of warfare against beings who think like we do. Do you understand what that means? Admiral Kethmore looked at his tactical display and saw the terrible truth. Of his proud third battle fleet, 200 of the most advanced warships in the Zephyrian Empire, only 37 were still able to fly, and those were only still working because the humans had chosen to let them survive. This is not a demonstration of our strength, Captain Choi said. This is a demonstration of our restraint. We could have ended your entire empire today. We have weapons that could destroy your home planet from here. We have strategies that could turn your own people against each other. We have technologies that could make your species extinct. The bridge of the Void Render was completely silent, except for the sound of damage alarms. Every person there understood that they were hearing something incredible, a species that could destroy them completely, but was choosing not to. But we do not do these things, the human captain continued, because that is not who we choose to be. We could have been the galaxy's greatest conquerors. Instead, we choose to stay on our own planet and leave other species alone. We could rule the galaxy through fear. Instead, we let other species think we are weak, so they will not be afraid of us. Admiral Kethmore finally understood why every other species in the galaxy avoided Earth. It was not because humans were weak. It was because humans were so incredibly dangerous that they had to pretend to be weak to keep from frightening everyone else. "We are letting you leave," Captain Choi said, "because we want you to go back to your people and tell them what you learned here today. Tell them that humans are not your prey. We never were. We are the species that every other intelligent race in this galaxy hopes will never decide they need more living space." As the remains of his fleet began the long journey back to Zephyrian space, Admiral Kethmore sat in his command chair and tried to process what had happened. He had brought the most powerful military force in his empire's history to conquer a single planet of primitive aliens. Instead, he had learned that those primitive aliens could have destroyed his entire civilization without breaking a sweat. The humans had not just defeated him, they had taught him a lesson that would change how the Zephyrian Empire looked at the galaxy forever. Sometimes the most dangerous predator is the one that chooses to eat plants. When he returned home, Admiral Kethmore personally updated the Zephyrian star charts. He marked the Sol system with the same warning that every other species used: quarantine zone. Do not engage under any circumstances. But he added one more note that would be passed down through Zephyrian military history for generations. They are not weak. They are choosing to be kind. Pray they never change their minds. The galaxy was safe because humanity wanted it to be safe. And that, Admiral Kethmore realized, was the most terrifying thought of all.